Hi guys, welcome back to the show. Hope you're all doing really well. Today we're bringing you the latest in AI news and sharing our views. Will, what have you got for us today? Let's dive straight into the latest story.
Well, I must admit, we were searching around for something. I think we're going to have to start planning our news stories instead of finding them in the morning. But I actually think we found quite an interesting one with a couple of different angles in which we can talk about it. We'll still try and keep it to 10 minutes, so I'll try and be concise with this. But let me share my screen. I think this is a really interesting observation, at least that I've had, and it's nice to see it then actually articulated into an article. And this article is very interestingly titled Software Too Cheap to Meter, which is an interesting title. So if you scroll down, if you're from the US, you might remember a famous 1954 speech where the chairman of the US Atomic Energy Commission famously predicted that our children will enjoy electricity in their homes too cheap to meter, which is a fascinating statement and prediction to how, we'll develop technology where we'll have unlimited energy. Obviously, to this date, that isn't quite come to fruition. But the author of this article draws it back to software development, but we are approaching an era of unmetered software. And this is coming at an angle where essentially people are going to be able to create their own software more and more easily instead of just relying on off-the-shelf tools and solutions. For example, the author references Gmail, Microsoft Office, Salesforce. Many of us will be able to use that software, build software on top of it to more personalize the experience of it initially, as well as just create things that better suit them from scratch. And this is through the rise of things like AI coding agents like Claude Code, which is probably the most popular one, or more local options like Nano Coder. And it's a real fascinating thing. The author references an example of what he did personally, which is reviewing spam emails in his Gmail are super annoying. I mean, that does look horrific. And instead, he used Claude Code to create his own personal inbox where you could see just the key details and it solved a problem for him. And he said that this is doable just so easily now, which is very true. And I think this comes two angles for me. The first angle is obviously this is a really interesting position that we're seeing the world of software developing into. And what does this look like for people who make software like us? What does it mean for software developers? What does it mean to have a job title of software developer? The other angle, and one I'm more pleased about, is obviously the idea of sovereignty. People don't have to rely on off-the-shelf options as much anymore, and they can actually build their own personal, owned, local, if they want it to be, software that is theirs and theirs alone, which is really interesting. It makes it less of a business, more of something as an extension of you. So no, I thought this is a really pertinent and fascinating topic. I'll be really keen to hear what your thoughts are, Ben.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I think we've seen this trajectory coming for quite a while, haven't we, in terms of the cost of software, the cost of all technology. Technology is one of those things that is deflationary. It's becoming more efficient, it's becoming faster, it's becoming better, and the cost of technology as a whole tends to go down. You look at your TVs. TV prices don't go up and up and up, like cars, for example. They come down and get down. The technology just gets better and better, and that filters down into lower end TVs. And so software as we see it in terms of specifically software, there's tons of free software that and obviously there's software you can buy. So I think this trajectory is obviously the way technology is, and it's really interesting because you can really get into like an interesting sort of thought experiment around about which I've done several times, and I might have talked about in some of my old videos, but around if we are getting better at things, which means the cost of things are getting cheaper in terms of technology, why isn't the rest of the world like this? Why do we see groceries becoming more expensive? Why do we see car prices going up? Why do we have this thing called inflation at 2% as a target? Where's this arbitrary number come from? Now, I'm not going to go into that whole sort of debate because that could go down a whole rabbit hole of, decentralized money, the manipulation of money, why it's done, and all the rest of it. That's not the purpose of this video. But technology is a deflationary beast. And without a doubt, this is the trajectory. I think it's really fascinating. And I think with AI specifically, like you touched on, it enables people from all walks of life to create more software. There is an abundance, and with AI, there's going to be a huge abundance of innovation, technology, and it's just exploding as we're speaking. So that's obviously deflationary, and drives the cost to near zero, which means it's phenomenal for efficiency, for innovation, for people to be able to use it. So it's fantastic on many levels. Potentially, what does that mean for software developers? Well, it's quite hard to commoditize, what you're building. I think we read something wild that 97% of apps fail to make any revenue, or something wild like that. So 3% of any apps in 2025, I think it was, make more than £100 or something like that. I can't remember the exact statistics, but basically the vast majority of you, if you're building apps, are going to fail. And that's just the reality, because there is so much competition and it's so hard to do it, and to do it well. So it's really interesting. So yes, there is an abundance, but that brings good sides and downsides, I guess, for builders. So that's my initial sort of thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think purpose is going to change, or there's going to be additional purpose to building software, or you're going to see a growing of one area. Maybe people do get enjoyment out of building software, if you're technical and things, but I think that range of people is going to go up. It's really interesting that you referenced that statistic from Revenue Cat, and I will actually put it up on the screen during editing so you can see this was an X thread by I believe the CEO of Revenue Cat, where he spoke the blatant truth of the amount of apps launching has gone up a huge amount compared to previous years, and actually the brutal truth to how many of those are earning money. Not very many.
Yeah, I might have got those statistics completely wrong, by the way, because
I don't think you're far off. I don't think you're far off. I think it's a brutally low number of apps being launched in the last year or so have made absolutely no money and never will make any money. So what this tells us, or at least what it tells me, is I think the purpose of software development is going to change. Whereas people are getting into it right now because it is easy to do, they're trying to make businesses out of it. Some will succeed, some will fail, most will fail. But I think as it continues to get easier to enter, what's going to happen is people are going to be creating software for the purpose of just having extensions yourself. Personal software, things that are just for you. They're not going to try and create a business out of it. They're going to try and make their own workflows faster, or their own lives a little easier, maybe for those around them as well. And it's never going to try and make a business out of it, which is certainly a paradigm. You're going to still have big software businesses. Maybe they're going to struggle more and more, but this commodity that it's going to become, it's going to be so easy to do that, as I said, people are just going to be creating it for themselves without any business intention at all. So it will be, as we keep saying, very interesting to see how it plays out.
So when we think about the, that huge, volume of software development that's going to happen, the cost of the drive to zero, the whole paradigm, how AI is playing into it. How do you see the monetary model changing in terms of the way AI's? I mean, this is something we've been discussing in terms of bots taking direct payments and things like this, because it's like the abundance of technology driving the cost down to zero. There has to be a monetary level at some point, but does that monetary level get replaced from that human interaction where it's it's slow, and you have to decide if you're going to buy something, and then it has to be processed by the other person, and where the speed almost is getting so exponential, both in terms of software development, but then the whole process of that flow of software interacting with other software. Do you see, bots interacting and just directly doing transactions and in terms of the cost going down, becoming microtransactions and fractions of a cent or fractions of a penny. How do you see that playing out?
Well, this is also very true. Is we're coming at it, and this article that we've referenced today is coming at it from an angle that software will cost zero, like no money at all. It will be too cheap to meter. Obviously, they then rather ironically referenced the 1954 speech, where it didn't actually go that way with electricity, and we didn't actually hit zero or unmeterable, electricity. And you could see a different reality playing out here. As you said, I think different business models need to come about and will come about. Obviously, over the last couple of weeks, we've seen a very stark, account of what business is like within open source and tech for the massive front end framework Tailwind CSS. The CEO of it came out and did quite a moving monologue on the difficulty of it and how AI has played a massive part in the demise of it. And in a return to that, they obviously got a bunch of sponsors, but there was a lot of conversation around new business models through literally LLM microtransactions and how there is existing protocols that could facilitate this. There are existing ideas. There are new ideas. And I definitely 100% could see it moving in that direction as well, where you're not necessarily paying for a monthly subscription like you once did. You'll be topping up a credit account for want of a better word, and LLMs can use that balance to pay for the resources that you're accessing and you are using. That makes complete sense. It allows people to pay for things when they're not actually accessing those services themselves manually like they did before. And it allows people to earn off of those projects. So we might see, a whole different paradigm of business. And I think that is actually a really exciting one because I think it solves a lot of issues, albeit there's a lot to work out.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I wonder if that sort of article almost reflects where, the current state of the world, almost, maybe even before the AI, but actually the reality is that sustainable? Is that, future where it's zero cost? Is that sustainable? Because if software developers aren't going to make any money, who's going to be developing the software? Or are you going to be happy to have yourself monetized as a free service and selling your data to the big corporates? But ultimately, I think you're right. I think that paradigm where I think the model changes from SaaS that we're all used to basically just buying what you need.
100%.
You're not tied into any particular thing, but your bot or the bot that you want or whatever it is just interacting with whatever tools it needs. And it's making that decision faster because you're basically saying, I want this output, and the bot's figuring out the best way, and provided it's got that budget to manage, then it's free to do it and just go quickly, crack on. And just takes that human element, which is always the slow part, out of the equation. So I mean, maybe that's the ultimate future that we're going to be witnessing in the next sort of 5 years or so. So we'll see. Interesting story, Will. Thanks for digging that one up.
That's okay. No, very interesting topic. I think it's just a fascinating future, and it's really interesting that I don't think it's that far away, really. And yet here we are discussing all these different possibilities. And I think each possibility radically transforms the world, which we've never seen the likes of before, really. Or at least I haven't in my lifetime. So it's great.
No, absolutely. And just one final point is, I mean, obviously to do these sort of microtransactions, we're going to have some kind of cryptocurrency sort of rails, because the old rails aren't going to be sort of sufficient to manage it. And the wild thing is, most people in the world don't even use cryptocurrency. So what does that mean for that whole space? It could be explosive. So interesting. Listen, guys, let us know what you have to say. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think of the story. Be interesting to hear your views. But in the meantime, thanks for joining us, and we'll enjoy catching up with you on the next one. Take care, guys.
Cheers, guys.